Welcome to the USU Career Studio podcast that helps you navigate your career path. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to tell your friends and family all about it. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you listen to get access to our newest content. Thanks for joining us for our Friday face-to-face episode. I'm Marissa Armitstead, your host, and I am so excited to welcome alum Emily Perry to the show. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm super happy to be here with you today.
So excited to be chatting with you. Emily Perry has been studying movement and mindfulness for nearly 2 decades and is passionate about educating others on how to embody health and wellness through a variety of mindfulness practices. Her master's degree in history focused on the history of yoga education, and she now oversees and teaches for the Yoga Studies minor and directs the Lifetime Activity Program for the Kinesiology and Health Science Department here at Utah State University. She is passionate about health and wellness and loves providing support and wellness resources to her students. Holy cow, Emily, so excited to have you on this month as we chat about tons of different majors that fall within the health and education kind of field and realm. I have to start out by saying you have such a cool fun fact, which is that you learned how to balance and do a handstand in your late 30s, and you can still do this. I have to know, where did the inspiration for this come from?
Well, it's, the reason that I wanted to share this fun fact is because I just feel like it's so important for your listeners to know that it's never too late to learn something new. You can pick up a new skill later in life. And it's just something, I've been teaching yoga for a long time now. And I guess it just felt like something challenging and fun, and it felt like a huge accomplishment when I finally caught that balance in the middle of the room.
Yes.
So I hope I'll still be doing it when I'm 90, but we'll see.
I love that. And I love that principle of it's never too late. And in fact, I work with a lot of students at the Salt Lake Orem centers, kind of at the statewide level. And so we have a lot of students who are returning for various reasons. Oftentimes they're a little bit older. And this is one of the biggest reframes I think my students have to walk through is I'm not behind. It's not too late. I'm starting today wherever I'm at. And so I think that is a beautiful thing to talk about. And I think that's a great example. So thank you for sharing that. I'm super disappointed we don't get to see it today, but maybe in the future we'll make that happen. I don't know.
Sure. Come to a yoga class and I'll show you. I'll teach you how to do it.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Okay. Well, let's dive in. I have so many questions, so we'll see what all we have time for today, but maybe give us a little bit of context. When did you first learn about yoga? What drew you into this? How did you end up in this space?
Well, I think like so many of us, I really just thought yoga was all about stretching muscles. And I have always been a runner. I've always been athletic. And so I started going to a yoga class, mostly just to stretch my hamstrings so that I could keep doing my sport. And I think I was probably in my early 20s when I started doing that. I'm 45 now. And what was interesting is that it did help my sport. It helped help my body, helped with flexibility. But I started noticing that I just felt better. I felt like I had a little bit more clarity in my mental state. I felt like I had a little bit more control over my emotional state. And this was also the same time that I was becoming a new mom. And I feel like it just saved my life.
Yes.
So I started for the stretch and I stayed for the mental clarity and emotional health.
Wow. Well, no, I could go on like 10 different tangents connected to that. But let's see, where do I want to go? I'm actually very curious. So your master's degree, okay. When I first saw it's in history, I was like, well, that's interesting. And then I saw, history in yoga. How did you even learn that was a thing?
Yeah, my path is really interesting. So after I started practicing yoga, I fell in love with it. I started teaching, and I started teaching here at USU just for our Lifetime Activity Program, which is what I now direct. And so just as a little sideline, that Lifetime Activity Program is it's a service learning program that we provide here at the Kinesiology and Health Science Department. And we have almost 70 different activity courses for students to come and, try something new, engage with students from other departments. So it's a really great networking and socializing activity. And then it's just fun. They just get to play. So we have basketball and volleyball and ice skating and skiing and bowling and fly fishing. I mean, almost anything you can think of. And so I started teaching yoga for this program back in, I think it's been, over 15 years ago now. And the yoga classes just kept growing and growing and growing. And I kept learning more and more and more about it. I was so curious as to why it was having such a profound effect on me. And also at this point, I was seeing the profound effect it was having on my students as well. So I started sort of branching out with the information, and I started studying, what really is yoga, and like I said, it on the surface, it appears to be just a series of movements that helps our bodies stretch and strengthen and create balance and harmony. But it's really fascinating because essentially it's moving meditation. And so I think one of the biggest misperceptions is that yoga is all about the body, when really it's a tool to help calm and settle our minds. We just use the body as sort of the focal point so that we can pull some of that awareness away from the mental noise and into our bodies toward a more felt sensation. And in that way, we kind of give ourselves a reprieve from, the constant narratives that are on loop in our minds. And when we do that often enough, we start to develop a sense of awareness that sort of exists beyond the thinking mind. And we can start to find these little pockets of peace throughout our day, maybe a kind of a moment of quiet in between thoughts, or maybe you're more inclined to notice nature, or, just to kind of drop in and settle into the moment. So I was so fascinated by this. And at this point, I had been doing numerous yoga trainings that were really focused specifically on the physical aspect. And the thing I was really lacking was the understanding of the history. So at that point, I actually returned to school as a graduate student, a non-traditional student. I know, see, it goes back to what I said in the very beginning. I started grad school. I graduated from grad school 20 years after I graduated from with my bachelor's degree. And at that point, we had started this yoga studies minor here. And so I had already dived into the education, the broadening education of yoga. So I went on and studied the history of yoga in the history department, and then came back to KHS, and here I am. So I really have been here in kinesiology and health science the whole time, but I did jump over to history just because I felt that was an element of yoga I was really missing and needed to understand more.
So interesting. Okay, I have a follow-up question connected to okay, so in my mind, and you can tell me how this is wrong, but I'm curious because in my mind, okay, I've heard the terms like yoga, meditation, guided imagery. Do these all fall like in a bucket or a category? Are they different categories? Like, how do these different, and I know you're maybe not the expert in all of these different things, but like, how do these pieces fit together? Help me understand.
This is such a great question. I'm so glad that you asked this, because it does get very, very confusing. You start to look at all of these different elements, and you kind of start to wonder, well, how does this all fit together? And essentially, meditation in and of itself is a state of being that we can't actually just drop into. Usually when people say, oh, I'm going to go meditate, what they really mean is that they're going to go and create the conditions for meditation to occur sort of spontaneously. It's almost like if you are going to sleep at night, you can't just lay down and say, okay, I'm going to be asleep now. You actually have to create the conditions to occur. You lay down, you cover up with your favorite blankets, you read your favorite book, you turn down the lights. So you create all of the conditions for sleep to happen. And then when it happens, it's almost like a surrendered state. So meditation itself is actually that sort of surrendered state. So what we have with guided imagery and yoga and other tools like even just art and athletic flow states are some of these conditions, is that we kind of set ourselves up for the condition of for the state of meditation to just sort of happen to us. So I would say that all of those elements that we hear about, even scriptural study or any number of practices, they're all just tools that we can use to help create the conditions for a meditative state to happen to us.
That is so interesting. And I've never heard it been described in that way, but that is so helpful. I've never thought about it that way. That's really, really interesting. Okay, this is so good. Let's see. So from there, kind of moving into a slightly different question. I'm really curious about research. And again, you can share as much or as little as you want to on the subject, but I'm curious about kind of the research or the science behind movement and mindfulness. Are people going to live longer? Are they going to be happier? Like, what are some of the known effects of meditation and maybe yoga as well?
Yeah. So there is a growing body of research that's starting to study the effects of the mind, not only obviously on our emotional states of being, obviously our headspace affects anxiety levels, stress levels, depression, all of those sort of emotional states of being, but it also has a direct effect to our physical body. So this is again, it's a growing body of research. They're starting to see the effects of stress on all of the systems of the body. So in Eastern medicine and in yoga, they kind of look at disease in the body as dis-ease. So there's some sort of unease happening in the body. And what they're really looking at is that it has in some way gotten out of balance. So we have all of these systems in our body. We have circulatory systems, digestive systems, respiratory systems, cognitive systems, and they're all these like finely tuned systems that are just, they miraculously function for us. And so when one of those systems kind of goes off track, then it kind of throws things off. And this is when we start to develop an imbalance in the body. So when we're looking at health, we're really trying to restore balance. We're really just looking and saying, okay, where am I out of balance? What happened? Where can I restore balance so that my body can go back to just doing what it knows how to do, which is to just function optimally. And so when we practice yoga, this is what's so interesting about the physical practice is that when we do movement in yoga, we're coordinating breath with movement. And the interesting thing about breath is that it's one of the ways that you can sort of settle the mind. So, you hear these things like, well, just take a deep breath, these kind of statements that are really popular. And truly, if you sat and you kind of focused on your breath for a moment and say you counted your breath so that you had an even inhale with the exhale, then during that time and that intense focus on your breathing, your thoughts would cease for a little while. And so when you come to a practice and you bring your breath into movement, you're not only settling and quieting your mind, but you are actually creating a harmonious relationship between your breath and your body. And so that harmonious relationship then leads toward more harmony in the other systems of the body. And over time, you can start to reset those systems and get things back into balance. And so it's a really interesting sort of way to recognize, first of all, the power of the mind to take us both out of balance, but also back into balance. If we can learn how to kind of quiet it down and let the body do what it does best. And then the other thing, of course, is bringing sensation other than, we're always listening to our thoughts and sort of following what the thoughts are saying to us in terms of what to do and how to do it. But when we move with our bodies in this way, we're learning about the intelligence of the body, that there's actually feeling there, and that we can tune into that feeling of the body to say, well, am I hungry? Well, I don't know. I'm not going to let my mind answer that question. I'd rather have my body answer that question. And, or it could be something like, gosh, I'm feeling a little bit run down. And it could be just the earliest signs of getting sick. And instead of saying, oh no, I don't have time for that, which is a mind construct, you could say, well, I'm actually going to really tune in and listen to my body and see what my body has to say about that. And then we start to really trust and follow through on the intelligence of the body, which is just absolutely incredible. So again, this is sort of a growing body of research, but they are finding more and more connections between stress and physical health, anxiety and physical health, which are, of course, those are conditions of the mind. So
This is so interesting. And, my brain is kind of connecting this and has questions around are these practices becoming more common? And I don't want to call them as a prescription, but like in addition to other treatments. Like, so for example, if somebody has severe anxiety or bipolar disorder or some kind of like mental thing, is it becoming more common for them to be, maybe prescribed, therapy in addition to medication and like yoga and meditation? Like, I'm just curious, are those worlds overlapping at all? Do you see that happening?
I do see it happening. I see it happening more and more. I don't know to what degree that it's happening. I would like to think that that's happening more often. I do see that there's more interest in that side of things. I feel like, especially with COVID and how taxed our healthcare system is, people are starting to recognize that they really need to start taking their health into their own hands. And I would always say that, the prescribed medications, it's always helpful. It's a both and situation.
Sure.
So especially when it comes to mental health, I would say absolutely talk to your doctor, work with your doctor on what can be done from more of a Western medical standpoint, but then also add in some of these techniques because first of all, they're free.
Yes.
They have no side effects. And you can do them anywhere. That's another thing I would mention about meditation is that there's such this misconception about, oh, I've got to sit still and I've got to have my spine straight and I have to do it right. And I've got to turn off my thoughts and I've got to have a quiet room. It's not the case at all. My favorite ways to meditate are just throughout the day. I like to just kind of bring my attention to the most mundane activities, really feeling the water while I wash my hands or wash the dishes or be really present while I'm petting my dog or sweeping the floor. And so it can be built in throughout your day. It doesn't have to be a formal sit down practice, but that helps too. So I would say both.
Yes, I love that
All
approach
of
of
the
yes
above.
and. Yes. Okay. Yes. I love that. Love. I'm really curious. Okay. So your work, you have a very interesting role here at USU. You're doing some teaching. You're also overseeing the Lifetime Activities program. So talk to me a little bit more about like, what does a day in the life of Emily look like? And it probably varies, but give me like some snapshots.
Well, my day always starts with meditation and breath work, which is in yoga, it's called pranayama. And it's just some breath work practices that bring your attention to your breath. So I usually start my day at about 5 a.m. I like to sit in the dark. I do some reading and some study first thing. And then I kind of alternate days, but I really love to get out in nature. It's another one of my practices. So oftentimes I will go out and I'll be on the trail because I like being in the mountains. I'll be on the trail right before the sun rises and I'm running or walking my dog. And then I have to hustle, get back. I'm in the office most of the day, but I do teach many of our yoga studies courses. So I work and I teach, and I also have a family. So I have a son that goes to Edith Bowen. So he's just right across the field from me, which is so nice. So of course, I take him to school and I work all day and then I come home and I just really dedicate the rest of my evening to my family. And I've got 3 boys and my husband. So we like to eat dinner together. And that's a pretty typical Monday through Friday week. But
I love that.
Practices that are important to me that I try to fit in.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing those. And some of the examples that you've even given have been really helpful of just, it doesn't have to be I'm setting aside 20 minutes to meditate. It can just be, let me feel this moment and let me focus on this one little thing in front of me. And I think that that's so helpful. So I really appreciate those thoughts. I'm really curious as you think about your work, and this could be from teaching, this might be more from the Lifetime Activity Program, but where have you found like satisfaction and joy in your work? Like, what are those moments that just make it all worth it for you?
Oh my gosh, I cannot even tell you how much I love my students. I love working with the students here at USU. Um, I love seeing those little aha moments when somebody recognizes a little moment of connection within themselves, maybe a moment of pause between their thoughts, or they've recognized a practice that's helpful for them, or even something like they were able to do an arm balance in a yoga posture that they never thought that they could do before. And it's moments like those and interacting with the students. You know, I feel like I would do this for free. Because
Yes, we love this. Yes.
I love the students so much, and they're so inspiring. And I'm constantly learning, really a lot of what I learn as far as the practices go and what works and what doesn't work. And really just seeing how the practice affects my students is just a testament to this practice to me. I see how it's shifting them and how they're growing and evolving, and I'm just constantly inspired. So,
Oh, we love to hear that those moments when you get lost in the work, when you could do it and you wouldn't have to be paid. That's such a good sign that you are doing something right. And so I love to hear when folks have that to share. I want to get a little bit practical. So, okay, these are beautiful thoughts. I'm now focusing on, okay, so if I'm a student, how can I get involved? How can I start applying this to my life? So I would love to hear a little bit more about the Lifetime Activities Program. But I'm also just curious, kind of on a broader scale, what are some of the resources that you think like all USU students should be aware of?
well, so in obviously we have a lot of really great degree programs in the kinesiology and health science department. We have PE, physical education, we have exercise science, we have health, professional health, masters of professional health. We have so we have various degrees that are so engaging for the students, but then the Lifetime Activity Program, that's really just for fun, I would say. Those are 1 credit classes. I just feel like it's so important to make sure that you're breaking up your academic work with something that moves your body and gets you kind of out of your headspace a little bit. We do have the yoga studies minor, and for those who are interested in teaching yoga, then we also, within that program, we're able to certify students so that they can go out and teach. And that's really cool because you can finish that within 2 years. You don't have to wait until you finish your degree. You can get your certificate. And so we have a lot of students that start teaching while they're still finishing their degree. Some of them are teaching on campus for us, and some of them are over at the ARC. But I would say just, if you're at all interested in health and well-being, that you should come and talk to some of our advisors at KHS, or I'd be happy to talk to you about the yoga studies minor, because, I'm always excited to meet new students. And I would just say, come and check it out. Even if you're not in KHS or interested in majoring, come and check out these Lifetime Activity classes. They are so fun, and we have something for everybody here. So
Awesome. And Emily, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. So if you need to take a second, there we go, to think about it. So I always am thinking about statewide students. There's so many great resources on the Logan campus. I'm curious, and maybe this is a challenge, it's something you'll have to think about, but I am curious, how can statewide students get involved? And maybe it's not necessarily through USU, like community. I mean, I'm just trying to think, for students who may not have direct access to all of Logan's resources, what are some ways you think they might be able to get involved?
well, one thing is that we actually do have extension campuses that do provide a small handful of lifetime activity programs. Um, but I do feel like USU is doing a really, really great job at creating more online opportunities for students. I know they've already done an incredible job, and we continue to expand on that. As far as my specialty goes, right now, we don't offer yoga studies in an online format, but there are just so many resources out in the community. I would just recommend, doing a little search, start looking, and really, as you're searching, there's so many different styles and teachers and approaches, as you're looking through and kind of, I would recommend that you sort of just feel your way through. And if you find something that really resonates or makes sense with you, then dive in a little bit deeper. But I feel like as far as education goes, whether it's yoga studies or health science or anything, there's just a wealth of information out there that it doesn't have to necessarily come through an academic institution, that people are just pouring their hearts out and they're sharing their information, they're sharing their knowledge. And I feel like if you want to learn about anything, you can.
Yes, I totally agree. Yes. Oh, well, I can't believe a half an hour has already gone by. That blows my mind. But I do want to end with one final question. And it's really kind of focused on you. And as you think about maybe like 18-year-old Emily, what kinds of career advice would you tell yourself?
Well, I think I was just so caught up when I was 18 about picking the right thing. I was so concerned, like, oh, I've got to pick this path and I've got to stick to it. And it's the one and only decision, and it's the most important decision I'm going to make in my life. And I think if I were to give some advice to my younger self, I would say, just trust yourself. So often we're looking out to everybody else to say, what should we do? What should I do? Does this sound right? Does this sound right? But really, ultimately, I would just sit with yourself for a little while, see what feels right in the moment, and then follow that next right step. And don't worry about the whole trajectory or the whole path, but just follow the next right step. And I feel like it's more like a scavenger hunt. One step leads to the next step, leads to the next step. And then you'll just, if you keep trusting yourself and tuning into your own intuition, then you'll find your path and you'll find your way. And it might not look anything like what you expected, which is the case for me. But it's been really, really fun.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. And I've never heard somebody use the analogy of a scavenger hunt, but I'm going to have to think about, I love that. I think that is so accurate when we talk about careers. So Emily, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to chat with me. I hope that it was a fun experience, but again, I'm just so grateful for your thoughts and insights and honesty as you talk about this career path and ways that students can get involved. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been a joy talking with you.
We hope you loved this episode of the USU Career Stadio podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and share this episode with your friends and family.